everyone. Welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss sexist double standards and companies as families. All right. So okay, we're not talking about the Peloton thing, or are we?
Well, I guess now we will.
I guess we are. So on the FU show, you talked about the Peloton ad versus the Aviation Gin ad and why the gin one's worse.
The message of the gin one is more like drink your sorrows away, that in an era where like it's all about drinking responsibly, seems a bit out of touch. And Ryan Reynolds, who is a owner of Aviation Gin, was hailed as a genius. And rightfully, nobody like criticized the actress for that message, which after the initial reaction of this is genius, people were like, yeah, the message is not so good. But in the Peloton ad, which actually is kind of like, I think people made a really big deal about it. It was like, then this is all sexist and wrong. And I do feel like the actress was kind of piled on a bit more. So I just felt it was a little bit of a kind of sexist reaction where nobody was I mean, I know we're comparing owner, actor, but so ultimately I asked, why is it that Ryan Reynolds, who's kind of like probably more creatively involved, hailed as a genius, even though the message is so bad, but yet we're piling on this actress for something that frankly, to the Peloton crowd was probably more on brand than we think. So upon sleeping on it, after my first reaction was, yeah, the world is sexist because there seems to be a disconnect here.
Okay, I don't agree with any of that, but that's fine. We don't need it. But so...
No, but go on. Why do you disagree?
Well, I mean, I saw this really good thread on Twitter by Amy Hoy, who's one of the co-founders of /7, but I don't really know what they do, so anyway. And she was talking about how it's really poorly copywritten. Like the ad just keeps changing perspective, and then who's the audience, and who is the camera, and who is she doing this for, and it's just like a poorly executed ad. This is the Peloton ad. I disagree that the Aviation Gin ad has a worse message because you only see her drinking 2 martinis, and
But she downs the first martini. It's more like using alcohol as a getaway. It's not that I'm not.
I know, but you don't know anything about. You don't know if it's the actress as the actress, like in real life. You don't know if it's the woman in the commercial. Like I don't know. I just feel like you don't have enough context to actually know that it's a bad message.
Look, there are probably 7 people on this amazing planet that can have one drink and one drink only, a glass of wine or a beer. As someone that enjoys an alcoholic beverage, as someone that turns to alcohol sometimes to take off the edge, I can tell you that message is more damaging than the Peloton thing that is really just for a cultish brand and their cultish clients. In any case, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, I think we're going to agree to disagree because I think it's a dangerous message to, like, if the message is that the husband is the star of that commercial.
No, that's horrible. And I do think that is absolutely, that was my point initially on the FU show, which is that's all off. But I feel like it's really weird that like now we're getting into like the ad as an ad execution. Like again, that's my point. All of a sudden we're criticizing the ad execution versus the message of one versus the message instead of the execution of the other. That's the double standards of the 2 ads.
Okay. I mean, if we're just talking about the execution, then I think one was executed well and one was executed poorly.
Absolutely. And I said that I thought the Aviation Gin was hilarious and entertaining, but I just think that the excessive love for one was overdone and the extreme hate for the other was overdone. That's ultimately. And I think you could kind of like find a lot of problems with both.
That's the internet.
That's it. And that's advertising.
Yeah.
They work because ultimately we're talking about them.
Okay, so if we're talking about double standards, because that's kind of what we are talking about, so you brought up that Away's CEO was left because of the culture she had cultivated in her company.
Yeah.
So do you think a male CEO would have been asked to leave or would have had the same treatment?
Okay, obviously the answer is it depends because you need to understand like the background of Steph Curry before she signed, how much leverage she had. So like let's not talk specifically about Steph Curry in a way, and let's just draw some interesting anecdotes. In an earlier episode of Context is King, I discussed why sometimes like pay parity is challenging to get to and all that. I do think, though, that oftentimes when a board recruits a CEO, now in this case, let's say whether you are a founder that becomes CEO, it's a bit different. But I think in a situation where you negotiate, indeed, A man historically, ceteris paribus, all factors being equal, will walk in with like more leverage because of their previous jobs, what they're leaving. So a man will be able, all factors being equal, to command a better severance package, ergo giving the board a harder time to tell, look, you've gone crazy, we're not happy. If you don't step off, we're going to grind you into pieces. And then they're like, okay, great, we'll part ways amicably. It's just possible here that Steph Curry did not have a strong hand. Now, they're saying that
I feel like that argument's based on nothing, though.
Well, no, I absolutely assure you that if Steph Curry didn't have a lot of leverage, meaning this could have been defined as cause, meaning she loses her stock, she loses any kind of like safety net, like whether it's severance or equity that she's earned or whatever, I assure you that it's not a nothing argument. This is absolutely the number one argument compared to Adam Newman. Adam Newman at WeWork had all the power, right? He basically had a veto. He had a 10-to-1 voting power dual share structure. He still had a lot of stock as a founder. He had so much leverage that, long story short, SoftBank had to give him $1 billion+ just to scram to give up that power. So I feel it's absolutely. There are other takeaways.
Yeah, but you're placing blame on the person and not the kind of institutional sexism.
I actually think that the bigger issue here is like, I mean, I want to kind of be like, bitch went crazy, but it's not her. I think it's this culture that they had where they didn't send each other feedback on email and everything was on Slack. So like there was a line where she'd go back to her computer and tap, 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 like and people would know shit would come down. I sent some crazy emails, but I also published them as memos purposely on LinkedIn so people could actually not take it out of context. And I'm very transparent about my management style because, again, somebody's going to complain and I'd rather you judge me based on what I say and do. But in this case, it's this bullshit culture that these backwards investors that just have all this free money in an era of low interest rates and flush capital who have no experience, no nothing, like 99% of them. There's obviously the great geniuses and great people that have done a lot of good. And so they build these cultures where they're like, oh, we won't give feedback through email or in person. It's all in Slack. Like, well, what do you think is going to happen? If I gave feedback to people through Twitter messages, like, how is that going to turn out, right? So I think here it's just more, the culture was kind of like kooky. And culture communications, this is how, positive environments are created, and this is how toxic environments are created. So here, I actually blame all of it. I blame the individual. She was crazy. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Like, to all of a sudden come and be like, ooh, I read these messages and I cringe myself. Well, you know what? You're saying that because now it's on Verge and it's all out on the internet. I blame the culture, I blame the organization, I blame the board, I blame culture. It's just the problem of we are now more comfortable to call out this, which is healthy.
Fine. But as a woman, I feel like sometimes you have to say things in a more harsh way just to get the same point across.
So you've seen me in private discussions, and I'm sure that I've said it on this, that it's only a problem when a woman says things a certain way or tone. I've never heard anybody go like, I don't like the tone of Joe's message, but they're like, I don't like how Shelly said something. And I'm like, what do you care about how she said it? She wasn't like, like telling you to go F off. You don't like her tone. That's your problem. So I absolutely agree that. And yes, I feel like, you've heard women say that like oftentimes for men not to steal credit in a boardroom, they'll be like, let's say I'm a woman. So I'm like, Jennifer, I'm like, hey, Rebecca, that's a great idea because I almost want it to be on the record for people to hear that it's Rebecca's ideas and not Tommy's ideas. All these things are true, but I don't think that like these two negatives offset each other. I think this is just a positive, direction that we're going where there's a good way and a bad way to communicate things. And let me give you an example, however, now switching gears. So we did the rewind video.
Right.
Okay. So we did the rewind video. And I saw an opportunity to also be like, finally, we talked about watchmojo.org to contribute to charities and causes. And as alluded on the FU show, I've had a hard time finding a way, like an opening to do it. And I finally saw it, that I said, if ultimately we're going to run down the top 10 moments and we want to give, number one to Etika, who took his own life away, YouTuber, I was like, so we're not accused by like 3 people of like profiting from a tragedy, even though that's how media works. People die, you write obits. But in any case, it's YouTube. I said, great, we're going to give full proceeds to a cause. So the next day, I get a colleague whom I love, and I hope this person does not mind me sharing this, but it's about
I warned him.
No, oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, God. What did he say?
He was like, oh my God, can you stick up for me, please?
Okay. I love this guy. He's a great employee. That's the only reason why I have the. But again, look how I'm defensive I'm approaching it. But this is the email I get the next day. We're all like happy with our reaction and all that. Quote, just wanted to send a message to you three to make sure that we make good on our promise to give the revenue from our YouTube Rewind video to a suicide prevention charity, on and on. Now, he does finish it saying, just want to say I think this video is great. I'm really proud of the team. So I'm the CEO of this company. I founded this company. I kill myself on the field every day. I defend and protect. I get an email like this. Now, I again take a deep breath. I'm like, most people would react, be like, yo, biatch, what are you talking about? What are you insinuating that we're stealing from charity? No, but I don't say that. My reaction as I go, hey, thanks for your note. It's coming from a good spot. He wants to ensure, and I think he was just curious, like, hey, when do we decide this? Make sure we don't miss it.
He was worried that it was on
Forgotten.
production and that it was going to be his responsibility.
And again, all good. But my reaction was, hey, if we've ever done something where we've said something, made a promise internally, externally, and we didn't deliver it, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Let me know. But I was like, man, you email this to anybody I've ever worked with in my life. You're going to go home with one less testicle than you showed up to work that day. But I'm just saying, I took it as an opportunity, and I have so many faults, but I took it as an opportunity to be like, look, there's a way you ask. There's like, does one reread their emails? So I care a lot. Like every week we have like a discussion about one thing or another where I spend half the time thinking about the human people side of the equation than just the operational, like, hey, it is what it is, too bad. So the point I want to get to is I'm not blaming Steph Curry. I don't know Steph Curry. I don't even know really what Away was all about. We've created this environment where entrepreneurs are basically given a lot of money when they say what investors want to hear. But that comes with like expectations to grow at rates that are not realistic, building a bubble environment and a bubble economy where valuations on paper go up, but it's all based on essentially a house of cards. And that basically means you don't care about people. It's a lot of like, just get it done. If you can't get it done, I'm going to grind you into pieces and somebody else didn't come for it. Whereas the right way is to use these opportunities. Instead of me sending him a Slack message saying, bitch, you're crazy, I'm going to cut you, you have to take the time to kind of use the opportunity to kind of be like, hey, this is...
But nobody wants that in writing.
Sorry?
Nobody wants that in writing.
I always say, I assume that whatever I write, people are going to share, even if not externally, to one another. So make sure you're careful with what you write. And I've said this oftentimes in meetings. I will sometimes say things about somebody and I go, I would be comfortable saying this to them. Now, I may need to put it into context, but anyway, all good. But
so, I mean, this kind of all falls into, well, you've talked about how you don't want to call Watch Mojo a family anymore.
Yes.
And I feel like we're kind of getting there.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like caring about people and all that. I used to call it a family, not because I wanted any like pat on the back, because I wanted to kind of explain why we've remained small. Like it was kind of like, not a cop-out, but it wasn't an excuse. It was kind of an explanation for every day I get to choose to pedal to the metal, destroy people to get them to do things, or you care about the repercussions and spillover of your decision. So it was kind of used like that. But it also, I realized, had a very different meaning to, like, let's say the first 10 people versus employee 11 to 50, even though employee number 47 could very well benefit from the fact that I kind of care about them and not just like profits and losses. But I also realized I saw a tweet, I can't find it for the life of me on Twitter. Somebody said like, oh, whenever like the CEO or the founder says this is a family, every time they say it, it's like 2 years of therapy or something. I forgot.
Who's therapy?
No, well, I don't even want to get into it, but I think the point was that indeed, it means very different things when you are a later stage employee, when a company's culture is already developed. And, so I realized that...
It's almost laughable.
It's almost like people roll their eyes. So
Yeah.
I've made a decision to, starting to paraphrase Kramer, starting now, that I will never refer to Watch Mojo as a family, because I realized that that means very different things to the first employees who have been here from day one, or 10 years. We've been around for 15 years versus the people that have been here for a couple of years. But that's what it boils down to ultimately. It's that test of, do you care about the person or do you just care about the process and the profit and the product, regardless of what the cost of the person is?
Okay. Well, what do you guys think? Should companies be referred to as families, or should we just grind people into the ground? I don't think that's a really good question. I feel like there's an obvious answer there, but let us know in the comments, and we will see you next time.